The thing I wanted to ask you, when the trade deadline came and went, do you wonder if those trade conversations for another QB may come back up this offseason?
No, and I'm not worried about that. If it comes up, it comes up. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Today was Black Monday, and for those of you guys that don't know what Black Monday is, it's when a bunch of NFL teams announce that their head coaches have been fired. The Denver Broncos announced yesterday that they fired their head coach, Vic Fangio, because, well, they played on Saturday. And well, I was gonna make a master video of each and every head coach that got fired and go into analysis for each and every one of them. But this one deserved its own video due to how much it blew my mind and how much I am struggling to wrap my mind around it. So before we get to the content, we've officially hit 50,000 followers on Instagram, so I'm announcing a $500 winner this week. In addition to that, we're gonna give away $500 to a subscriber that turns on our notifications on this channel. Now that we got all that out of the way, break! Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? The Miami Dolphins organization was an absolute dumpster fire prior to hiring Brian Flores. Although they had a litany of losing seasons under Brian Flores, there was clearly a culture that was being built. I personally was a huge fan of Brian Flores as a head coach, mainly because he was probably the only Bill Belichick disciple that wasn't trying to carbon copy Bill Belichick. He seemed to be a brilliant defensive tactician that was actually doing a wonderful job building a culture in Miami. And despite the Miami Dolphins not having Tua Tagovailoa for the beginning of the season this year and starting out the season with an absolutely horrific record, going 1-4 in the beginning of the season, they finished the rest of their season with a 7-1 record once they were able to get Tua Tagovailoa back. And for those of you guys saying that they only were able to beat lesser teams during the tail end of the season, bear in mind that they were able to finish their season by beating the New England Patriots. And they were one game away from making it into the playoffs. In addition to that, it seems like Brian Flores was doing a pretty remarkable job with Tua Tagovailoa. Tua didn't have a Justin Herbert-like season. He didn't look like the next face of the NFL, but he looked like an above-average quarterback, or a quarterback that could thrive in the right offense, and a pretty decent game manager at that. That throw that he made to Jalen Waddle yesterday at the corner of the end zone for a touchdown was a tremendous throw and was showing how much Tua Tagovailoa was actually developing. Now, the Miami Dolphins may not have seemed to be like one of the most dominant teams in the NFL, but they were literally a game away from the playoffs this year and last year as well, going 10-6 last year. With Tua Tagovailoa, Brian Flores was 14-8 in his games, and without him, he was 10-17. And that's despite the Miami Dolphins and Chris Grier making the mistake of drafting Tua Tagovailoa over Justin Herbert. But regardless, Brian Flores was still making it work despite that one mistake. So it comes to me as a tremendous shock that, first of all, Joe Judge is staying with the New York Giants, another Bill Belichick disciple. However, Brian Flores would not be so lucky, because according to Adam Schefter, Brian Flores is officially out as the Miami Dolphins head coach. This was absolutely surprising to me. I really felt like this was a horrific move by the organization, when many people initially thought the reason for this was because Jim Harbaugh has been teasing the NFL with potentially returning. I personally think that Jim Harbaugh is just putting out, hey, I'm interested in returning to the NFL, so he could get a little bit of a pay raise from Michigan. But what a lot of people are speculating is that the reason why the Miami Dolphins are doing this is because they are pursuing Jim Harbaugh as their next head coach. Well, the owner of the Miami Dolphins, Stephen Ross, actually gave a statement on this whole situation.
I don't think that we were really working well as an organization that it would take to really win consistently at the NFL level. But it's really going to be depend the next head coach is and the direction that he wants to take that position.
Now, this is crazy because apparently this could actually affect the Dolphins' ability to trade for Deshaun Watson should they decide to trade for Deshaun Watson. And we'll get to that in a second. Here is Brian Flores' statement on the situation. I want to thank the Miami Dolphins organization for the opportunity to be the head coach of this team for the last 3 seasons. It was an honor to represent the franchise and lead this group of men. I'm grateful most of all for the players, coaches, and support staff who gave gave everything they had on a daily basis to help us win games. They deserve the credit for any success on the field, and it was the honor of a lifetime for me to go to work with them every day. I've always believed that leadership is really about service, and I did my best to serve the players, the staff, and the organization every day. I believe in this team and will always value the relationships my family and I made here. The funny part about this entire situation is apparently the owner of the Miami Dolphins, Stephen Ross, said straight up that I am not going to be the person to take Jim Harbaugh from the University of Michigan. Some interesting language there. We have no idea whether or not Jim Harbaugh is going to leave Michigan for the Miami Dolphins. He didn't say we're not pursuing Jim Harbaugh. He said I am not going to take Jim Harbaugh from the University of Michigan. So maybe something is in the works there. Maybe Jim Harbaugh is more interested in the Dolphins job than Michigan. So the good news is, according to Adam Schefter, is that Brian Flores is now expected to be a prime candidate to get head coaching consideration elsewhere during this next hiring cycle. Hopefully with a team that is a little bit more competent than the Miami Dolphins, because honestly, I felt like Brian Flores was really building something down there. Here's the thing, this actually affects the Miami Dolphins' ability to get Deshaun Watson. Now, we were gonna make our own separate video on the Deshaun Watson situation, because lately he's been coming out and saying, I'll play for this team, I won't play for that team. And it seemed like the number one team that Deshaun Watson wanted to play for was the Miami Dolphins. And I can honestly see why. The Dolphins had a remarkable roster. They were in a very nice area to play in. They were up and coming. Their head coach was young and was building a nice culture over there. And apparently a huge reason why Deshaun Watson wanted to go to Miami was because of their head coach, Brian Flores. And apparently with Brian Flores out, this situation may have changed according to Ian Rappaport. So even if the Miami Dolphins wanted to go the Deshaun Watson route, apparently as a result of firing Brian Flores, Deshaun Watson might no longer want to play for the Miami Dolphins. Personally, it's really hard to imagine this firing being a smart move. This reminds me a lot of when the Detroit Lions fired Jim Caldwell. Jim Caldwell was doing an absolutely remarkable job in Detroit. He went 11-5 in his first season, 7-9 in his second, 9-7 in his final two seasons. He didn't make it to the playoffs in his final season, but he made it to the playoffs in 2 seasons with the Detroit Lions, and they haven't been to the playoffs ever since. The Detroit Lions fired Jim Caldwell just so they could bring in Matt Patricia, and ever since then, they've been an absolute dumpster fire of a franchise. There's a saying that goes in, I believe, entrepreneurship, but just in life in general, if you keep chasing the pot of gold, you're never going to get it. Which means if you don't stick with one thing and you keep jumping from one thing to another, this is usually used whenever you're talking to someone about careers. I have this one friend that recently dropped out of medical school when he was like 3 years in, and he said, screw it, you know, I'm going to go from medical school, I'm going to try to pursue nursing school, when he was 3 years in, because medical school was just starting to break him down. But that was his like 3rd career. So he went from medical school to nursing school. After nursing school, he tried going to dental school, and at the current time that I'm making this video, he's 34 years old, and he just keeps going from one thing to another, thinking that next thing is going to be better, but he never ends up finishing it. And I just feel like that's what the Miami Dolphins are doing here. Yeah, maybe Jim Harbaugh is available, and yeah, maybe Jim Harbaugh is the guy you hire, but just because Jim Harbaugh is a big name who had success with the San Francisco 49ers doesn't necessarily mean he's going to replicate that success with the Miami Dolphins. Look at what happened with John Gruden. Won a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. After that Super Bowl, he wasn't nearly as successful with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, eventually gets fired by the Buccaneers, starts going into commentating, and just like Jim Harbaugh, every once in a while his agent would put out there that he is looking to return to coaching. Almost every coaching cycle this would go down until finally the Las Vegas Raiders decided to hire him and signed him to an obscene 10-year $100 million contract. And even then, he was an okay head coach. Like, the Raiders were on the up and up, and they started out really well this past year, but I don't think he was worth the investment at all whatsoever based off of the decisions he made for that franchise. So let me know in the comment section down below, do you think the Miami Dolphins made the right decision by firing Brian Flores? Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.